So this track I made got 1 million streams, but the mixing project for the track looks like this. Look, there are literally barely any plugins on here. It's so simple. So in whatever genre of music you make, I want to talk about how you can stop overproducing and over mixing everything and just focus on what actually matters. We're going to talk about something called groove rotation, and I want to give you some arrangement and songwriting tips, even if you don't know any music theory. So these ideas will hopefully, 1, make your songs better, and 2, save you time. So first, I just want to play a little snippet of the track because most of you probably haven't heard it. Now, like I showed you, this is the mixing project, and as you can see, there's barely anything going on, just some basic EQ and volume adjustments. And then this is the project I actually produced the track in. It's a little more complicated, but honestly, if I were to collapse all these drums in a folder, you can see how simple it actually is. Like everything up here, that's all the melodic stuff going on in the track. So I'm gonna go through the arrangement of the track and talk about why I think it works, even though it's so simple. And the main thing to keep in mind is always songwriting is the most important thing always, and then production is less important than songwriting, and then mixing is less important than production, and then mastering is less important than mixing. And if we dive into this track, you'll see every 8 bars, I introduce something new. So it starts off with just the piano and drums and vocals. And then after 8 bars, we introduce the bass and an organ sound. But the important thing here is you should think of your transitions not in terms of production or mixing, like adding a white noise sweep or adding like reverb automation during the mixing phase to make transitions smoother. You should think of your transitions in the songwriting phase. So when I used to write a song, I would never have this little bass part in here. It would just go straight into the bass right on the downbeat. But just having something as simple as this little bass transition to lead in the bass here, it's just a little detail that smooths out the transition from a songwriting perspective. And then if you notice, these piano chords can get pretty repetitive. So to transition into the drop, I just added a really small chord change to add some contrast. So one reason this works so well is because we've just been listening to short staccato chords the whole time. So it's nice to play some longer, more legato, drawn out chords to switch up the vibe a little bit. And if we look at this transition into the drop, like in this section, I could have had a big drum fill right before the drop. But if you listen to the drums, there's nothing there, it's just empty space. And that's because I just let the actual songwriting lead the transition and not some gimmicky production thing. And just to accent those longer chords, I added these strings. And that's just another songwriting thing that helps smooth out the transition even more. And then we're continuing with the theme of adding in something new or changing something every 8 bars. So this is the first time in the track so far we're hearing this bass line. A song is all about taking the listener on a journey. Like that bass sound wasn't in the song before, and then it pops up when the drop hits, and the listener's like getting into the groove, and they're like, yeah, that sounds nice, I like that. And then after 8 bars of just the piano and bass playing, you're gonna get bored of that, so we gotta add something else back in, and that's when I add the vocals back in. And to go back into the chords for a second, you don't actually have to change the chords to make a transition. You could just make the chords longer. Like the chords in this part were like that. They were like staccato like the rest of the track. So instead of having them short, I just made them at the end of that phrase be a little longer. and then it goes back to the normal staccato piano part. So if we zoom out and look where we're at, the piano has been playing on repeat for the whole song so far. We've just been listening to the piano the whole time. So at this point, it's a good idea to take that piano out and just introduce something totally different. This part wouldn't be nearly as effective if I tried to keep the piano chords in there to keep the energy up. It's better to drop out the chords and just introduce that new whistle melody. So I want to use this part to talk about something I call groove rotation. So in your head, you should be thinking about what is the main rhythm of my track. Like in this case, this is the rhythm. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Sorry for my terrible humming there, but the main point is that this is the groove of our track, and we're going to use different sounds to play different parts of the groove. Like I might have a sound play this part of the groove, and then a different sound play this part, and then something else play this part. So the sounds trade off of each other. So what the listener really hears is something like this. So we're trading off the groove from one sound to another, and this just gives our mix more space and more room to breathe. So if we zoom back out and look at where we are in the arrangement, at this point we've been listening to pretty short staccato notes the whole time. Like the bass line is mostly short staccato notes, the piano chords are mostly short staccato notes. That's why in this section I start to introduce these legato, longer chords to switch up the vibe. Like it's a pretty repetitive chord progression, but just switching that from staccato to legato makes this part feel fresh and new. And when we build up these longer legato chords into the last drop, it just makes the payoff of the last drop so much better, because then those short staccato chords come back in and you get back into the groove and the funk of the track. And also, if you noticed, I saved the biggest payoff until this last drop. So this is the first time that we're hearing the whistle, bass, and piano all play at the same time. So I could have, if I wanted to, I could have had this whistle melody just start in the first drop, but that just makes things a little too crowded right away. We want that first drop to focus just on the piano chords and get into that groove. And then we introduce the whistle a little later, but without the chords. And then we wait till the final drop to put them all together. And then we have the very climax of the tune right here, when we pretty much have all the melodic parts playing at the same time. Like it's almost too crowded. Like I wouldn't want to have this many layers at any other point in the track, but just because it's the very end of the track, I just throw everything together for that big like climactic moment. But when there's that many layers adding that much energy, I don't like to just end the track right there. I want to have a little bit of a cool down section. And again, that last transition into the ending is all about the songwriting and what the chords are doing. It's not about any fancy production or mixing technique. So anyone that's already left the video doesn't know this, but I left all the mix stems from this track down below so you can analyze them, you can mess around with them, you can use all the drum sounds. But I will say, don't use the vocals to release a remix of it, because the record label technically owns the copyright to the track and you just can't release a remix of it or use those vocals. So I think the main takeaway from this video should be to stop wasting time on production and mixing until you've actually nailed the songwriting and arrangement part of the track. Like flesh out where you think the lead melody is going to go and where the chords are going to go and where the bass line is going to go, and lay that all out before you actually start spending a ton of time producing everything and adding in drums and mixing the track. So I appreciate you guys watching. That download is down below in the description, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.